Even though fans have had dozens of 90-day Fiancé couples to obsess over since Season 4, including the recently completed Season 9, Anfisa and Jorge still captivate people. To say they had their differences would be about as big of an understatement as one could make. From Anfisa's blunt demeanor and willingness to say exactly what she's thinking to Jorge's constant failure to please her, they both consistently delivered some of the show's trademark quotes. These moments sum up the turbulent time the couple spent together on the show. "You don't take care of me, you don't feed me, you're nothing." Anfisa's anger. One of the most common themes of Anfisa and Jorge's time on the show is Anfisa being angry about something. What that something is can vary drastically depending on the episode, but this time around it was Jorge's failed attempt to win her over with sweet treats. Like most things they do, it turns from innocuous into hostile quickly, and during the resulting fight, Anfisa delivers one of her trademark attacks with this particularly hostile quote. "My past relationships were terrible. Part of a trend. While many of the most talked about moments of their tenure came from things Anfisa said, occasionally, Jorge also put his foot in his mouth, making certain situations worse and causing fans to shift some blame for their failures to him. Many of the lies he tells and deflections he makes on the show start to make more sense when one considers his apparently quite spotty dating history. It is enough to make more than a few fans consider if he is more of the problem than the editing of the show lets on. If you have a problem with that, find a new girlfriend." Another Anfisa ultimatum. Some fans would argue that Anfisa's is a troublemaker whose behavior goes over the top pretty quickly on the show, and after some of her more audacious moments, like deleting the contents of Jorge's phone and basically running him out of his apartment, Jorge took some time to cool off. When he called back, he was probably anticipating a more level-headed response from her, but instead, she doubled down. The harsh delivery of this quote and the difficult position it put Jorge in is symptomatic of the many conflicts the pair had on the show. "Bring me my red bag," with the makeup. An unforgettable moment. The defining moment of Jorge and Anfisa's relationship was perfectly caught by the show's camera crew as they sat in Jorge's car about to leave for a crucial interview for Anfisa to be able to stay in the U.S. Her rush to anger and execution of the now iconic demand for Jorge to get her specific red bag instantly became 90-day legend and fully embodies why the pair had so much trouble communicating and working together to help Anfisa stay in the States, long term. "I may have exaggerated a little bit to Anfisa about how much money I had. The problem at hand." Another moment where Jorge let slip that he might have been accounting for more of the relationship problems than fans were led to believe. Where Anfisa is honest, often brutally so, about her desires and expectations for Jorge, he seems to be no stranger to lying. It doesn't really come as much of a surprise when he confesses to inflating his wealth during the early days of his relationship with Anfisa, because so many of their fights come from his failure to meet her expectations. "I am only with you for your money." Anfisa's gold digger motive. While Anfisa has complained a lot about how she was treated during her time on the show since it first aired, she didn't do herself any favors with this quote. She was accused of being a gold digger and conflated with the Russian bride stereotype, often both during the season and in its aftermath, and while she claims the show was edited to heighten that side of her, she occasionally says something so obvious it's hard to misconstrue. This quote feels pretty symptomatic of her attitude on the show throughout and carries the tone that made Anfisa both a villain and a fan favorite 90-day cast member. I said come home, right now. Now, that phone call while her red bag outburst is the most well-known moment of the season and one of Anfisa's funniest quotes. The most iconic argument the pair got into on the show comes after Jorge sneaks out of his apartment without telling Anfisa where he's going. The resulting phone call features many quotes that are representative of the way the pair interacted, but the absolute fury of Anfisa translates perfectly through the phone as she yells at Jorge to come home that second. The apartment causes a lot of problems for the pair and eventually, Anfisa even kicks Jorge out entirely, making this fight just a taste of what was to come. She erased my phone. Speaking of phones, while kicking Jorge out of his apartment was seen as very over the top by fans, there is one Anfisa moment that is often cited as being even more out of control, and it's when she deletes everything on Jorge's phone. Her obsession with transparency might be somewhat justified given Jorge's lying, but she turns to very drastic action very quickly, and much like the pair's apartment struggles, this phone incident served as major foreshadowing of what they would go through later in the season. If I was fat ugly, would you be dating me? The truth comes out. Another attempt Jorge makes to appease Anfisa is when he takes her out to a Russian restaurant, but unsurprisingly she isn't satisfied. While one could also highlight Jorge's question of whether Anfisa would still date him if he was poor as a sign of their struggles, this incredibly satisfying moment sees Anfisa finally challenging Jorge on his double standard. It's a moment that many fans see as one of Anfisa's biggest wins during her time on the show, and they often pulled for future couples on the show to play the exact same card. Because I had my reasons. The underlying cause. The most indicative quote from Anfisa and Jorge's entire time on 90 Day Fiancé sums up exactly why the pair could never communicate clearly or get along at all. One of the most shocking things Anfisa does is key the word idiot into Jorge's car. Afterward, she is confronted on why she chose to do so, and her answer perfectly sums up her rush to brash actions, mistrust of Jorge, and inability to justify or explain many of her actions. Fans looking for one moment that was perfectly symbolic of the struggles of this iconic 90-day couple needn't look any further than this interaction.